victory over Minnesota. We'll also profile one of the Wolverines who's really a trip, and we'll scout the Buckeyes of Ohio State, Michigan's regular season finale. All that and more coming up next.
Retain the Little Brown Jug with a 35-18 win over Minnesota. And early in that game, it didn't look like it was going to be a big win.
Well, believe me, getting that jug is important, Jim, and winning the game. Had we scored the 4 touchdowns in the first half rather than the second half, it had been a lot easier. But I think our defense played better, and we had a couple problems executing. Minnesota basically, Jim, come out and said, okay, you're not going to run the football. If you want to throw the ball, maybe you can score some points. And we didn't execute a couple things the first half. Major penalties hurt us, too.
Right, and early in the game, too, their offense came out on the first possession and moved the ball on you, and that's something you don't like to see early, is it?
No, and it happens on occasion. The thing you're thankful there, like this week, was the fact they only came up with 3 points. Sometimes you have to make those adjustments after you see what their attack's going to be, their initial attack.
They get a big pass here from Markel Fleetwood, their quarterback, early, getting them into your territory on their first possession.
That was on a blitz, and that hurt us.
And they're running the ball pretty hard, and I was a little surprised at that.
Right there, they jumped in a wishbone, and then John Milligan made a good tackle. And Fleetwood here on the quarterback draw. We had 2 quarterback draws on 2 big drives that hurt us. Then we got him slowed down. Here, Martin Davis has a great sack, just running over a would-be blocker, their fullback, and then sacking the quarterback help.
And that was Schaffner, the quarterback, who came in to replace Fleetwood. And then they had to settle for the 3 points, which at that point you said, okay, after they moved the ball out, well, that's not bad.
Yeah, you don't want to give up any points, obviously, but at the same time, keep them out of the end zone from the touchdown.
Now, talk to us about defensively any adjustments that you made.
Well, the big thing that you try to do once you see their attack, sometimes you start playing different formations in different plays. Neil Simpson there came up with a big interception that led to our first touchdown. Made, you know, he looked like a wide receiver there. And then Powers comes back, our tailback, and breaks one off tackle, faking a guy out here for about 17 to 20 yards down the left side.
And then you make a great catch in the end zone.
Yeah, well, these are part of the things you have to do, Jim, and there we execute the pass well. And later you're going to see we do the same thing because they were blitzing us basically on every down, and there were just too many people up there to block. And we dropped a couple key passes. Here you see Elvis throwing a perfect pass here, and Desmond dragging the feet. You got to have 1 foot inbounds in college ball, and for a big touchdown. We hit Derek Alexander later in the same way.
And we go to the second quarter, and the defense starts to pick it up.
Right. We got some pressure. We got a few sacks, and they hung in there very, very well for us, obviously, and give us an opportunity in this game. Here we have an unfortunate deal. We had turned the ball over twice, one later on an interception, and here John Vaughn fumbles the ball, giving them decent field position, really taking us out of a scoring opportunity.
This is their biggest play on the ground of the day.
Right. This big run here in the final drive, or their second-to-last drive for a touchdown, were the things that our defense did the poorest part of, I thought.
Fleetwood back in the game. This is what makes him dangerous, the option.
Yeah, and you're sitting there waiting for him to pitch the ball, and he decides, boom, he can run around you. He's got that speed. Foggy did that to us 4 years ago when we got beat here, Jim, 17-10.
Now, just before half, you get it going to try to regain the lead.
Right. We got down here fairly good, and Ricky made a couple runs. Here, Elvis is hitting Desmond for a big pass there. Then we get it down there, we drop a pass, and we get sacked, and J.D. misses a long field goal.
Powers continues to run the ball well in this drive. You're getting down inside a minute to go in the half. You figure this is the way it's going to happen.
Right, and we had to come out with points here. Here, Bunch goes inside for about 6 or so. And the key thing here is to score a couple points.
And now's when it falls apart.
Yeah, we drop a ball out here in the flat where we on a 1st and 10. Then we come back on 2nd down. And then Elvis, we go to the air here, and we get sacked. And throw us back a little bit. We still should have made this field goal, but J.D. pulls it off the left side.
It was going into the wind a little bit, but still not a good kick by J.D., even though he broke the record for consecutive extra points in the game. Still, at 10-7, you're down at halftime. I mean, you got to be going in at half saying, wait a minute, this isn't the way the script was written.
Well, the thing you're saying to yourself is you just hope the clock doesn't run out on you. But eventually, you're going to hit some plays. And you want to be patient. You don't want to turn the ball over, which we did twice. As long as your defense can hang in there, you're eventually going to hit some plays. But, you know, you look at it at first, and I think we should have blocked better than what we did. But there was always an extra person in there that we couldn't account for. And the only way to account for them, quite honestly, is you got to throw the ball.
The second half was a whole lot better for the Wolverines. They come back to win big with a big second half. We'll be back to take a look at those highlights. But first, we hear from one of the big stars, the defensive heroes of that first half.
We had worked on the wheel route this past week, and that was exactly what he ran. And when I saw it, it was like everything was there. And I just reached for the ball and they caught it, and I ran it back, trying to score a touchdown. But like I said, it was a great feeling. It was just a great feeling.
We decided we wanted to come together and send the seniors out with a nice victory. And to see Tripp on the sideline hurt was like an emotional uplift for me and the other players on the team. So going back there was no problem once I see how Tripp was in his emotional state.
Well, Desmond Howard certainly did his job in sending the seniors out of Michigan Stadium in their last game with a victory. And, of course, the injury to Tripp Wellborn had an emotional impact. But you had to have an emotional impact on the team at halftime, down 10-7. Was it an attitude readjustment period in there?
Well, not in any big way, Jim. It was basically setting up some fundamental things that we had to accomplish and just basically executing better and giving our team somewhat some confidence in there, and then getting after him to block a little better. And here's where Tripp gets hurt on his punt return. He makes a nice return here, then just right there, some way his leg buckles underneath him and hurts the knee.
We'll talk about Tripp and the extent of that injury a little later. Meantime, this gets you back in the ball game and gives you the lead this drive.
Right, just fires people up. And here Elvis on that same pass he just got sacked on. We get the protection. Now he hits Desmond on a 7-yard gain, the key first down. Then here's the price you pay when you blitz all the time, and then finally we execute one of those plays I was talking to you about earlier, Jim.
And it's a situation where you read that blitz and you get into the right play, and you can do that.
Right, exactly. And here you have our defense putting on pressure. Our secondary must have covered well here, and Fleetwood gets sacked for a -4 yard. Here our defense is flying around. Eric Anderson comes over on a screen, makes a big play here for a 1-yard gain.
Thing is about that defense, again, you stopped Fleetwood from getting outside. You made sure that rollout didn't hurt you.
Yeah, we had to contain him. Now here's a change of events, really, or back and forth. Elvis throws high here to Desmond. He's got to get that ball down a little bit. And Jackson intercepts. Yale Van Dyne makes the tackle here.
And at a 14-10 game, this is a really
big
tight
play.
situation.
And these are the things our defense has to do, and you have to see them do it, and I give them a lot of credit. Here's Lance Stoughton, has great concentration on the ball, juggling the ball and coming up with a key interception. That was the play I think really turned things around. Here Ricky is coming back on a semi-counter play and cuts back and gains about 10 yards. Then here he is again getting about 10 yards here.
Now they're in the same defenses, really asking you to throw, and yet you're running against them.
Right, we made a few adjustments. We still feel like we had to block people, but at the same time, look how wide open Desmond is here. Pass a little slow getting to him, and the guy hits him in the back, but there he's wide open. Some of these passes right here, Desmond, the short things and then let Desmond run. Derek should have done the same thing, really.
Great run here by Ricky Powers.
Yeah, gets down the sideline, keeps his balance, and dives forward for a key first down there, Jim.
And then you go back to the fade pattern, but with a little different twist.
Right, here's the same kind of pass that we had Desmond on. Now we're hitting Derek. Well-thrown ball and a nice catch by Derek there. But again, Jim, it's the same old thing. Those are things you have to be able to execute when they're going to pile every defensive player in there.
21-10 at that point. They've got to go to Schaffner now all the way because he's the better thrower of the two, and you're able to keep him contained for the
right,
most
here
part.
He scrambles, and Eric Anderson comes up with a big play there. I think they held him to about 1 yard. Then we come back again. Here we're going to hit Derek Alexander. Desmond throws a good block there. Derek makes a move on a guy, gets to the outside, and gains 10 or 12 yards there.
And again, the defense asking you to throw.
Right, and here's a similar thing to Desmond. He makes a nice move here, Jim, and gets down the sideline for about 15 yards. So that was a big play there.
And then you go back to the ground again.
Yeah, Powers has a couple nice runs here. Here's one about 10 yards. Makes a nice move there. He's a strong kid, doesn't go down real easy. And you have to break tackles. And here he is. He bounces around here on about the 1, then goes in standing up.
And that's a good, powerful back. At that point, it's 28-10, and you've really taken control of the game. And this may be the most disappointing drive coming up that Minnesota put on you.
Yes, exactly. This is, other than that run I mentioned earlier in the first half, this drive is one that hurt. They got out on the bootleg pass. We should have contained it a couple times when we didn't. And you can't give a quarterback too much time.
And Schaffner is a guy that can throw the football. He's the thrower of their two quarterbacks.
Right, and as you indicated earlier, that's why they brought him back in. And you see a throw of about 10 there. Now he's going to scramble on the quarterback draw. This is a disappointing play. He shouldn't be able to do that. Fleetwood's got a better opportunity. We should have contained him there.
Then they come down here and they get the pass in over Tingelhoff. Good receiver, makes it 28-18 with a 2-point conversion. Still a little bit shaky, so you got to get back on offense and get after him.
Yeah, we had to get after him there. And that last pass, they had a little too much time to throw. But here Bunch makes a run into the line, breaks it to the outside, and that's an excellent run, 53 yards. You know, everybody says, well, he's got to run a little faster. But when you're 245 pounds and you're running a little under 4.6, you're running pretty fast, really.
He runs a little like me.
Exactly. Well, yeah. a little faster than that, yeah. And then you got John Vaughn going around the end there for the final touchdown. So
35-18 the victory, and a big victory for Michigan. The second season you remain unbeaten, and it was very important for you and the kids, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, there's no question. If anybody told me going into that game that you're going to win 35-18, I'd say that's fine. Let's go play Ohio State. But you still enjoy playing the games and things, and disappointing the first half performance. We cannot do that, however, next week in Columbus. We got to put a whole 4 quarters together.
Do you think you're going to see the same kinds of defenses where they're coming up there saying, hey, you will not run the ball on us?
I think we'll see a variation. I think they're a little stronger up front where they feel they can stop us with their normal people. But we'll see some blitzing. They're obviously going to look at this film and say, hey, we got to try some things, so that could very well happen. But each week it's a different wrinkle. This is just like the Purdue game, Jim. A couple weeks ago, and when we went to Lafayette, we did not expect that, and quite honestly, we didn't expect what we got today. But sometimes people play like that and take some chances.
Well, whatever Minnesota tried to do, it was a big victory for the Wolverines, 35-18 over the Golden Gophers. It was also a big day in Michigan Stadium for the Michigan seniors, their last game in the Big House, and we hear now from one of the leaders of those senior group.
Oh, it's always special, and usually it doesn't hit you until it's over with, and you think about it. I've thought about it all the scenes. We thought about it all last night, and on a trip over. Trip over was probably the quickest trip that we ever took over from campus in, and now that it's over, we got to move on, but it'll be something that'll be a part of us for the rest of our lives.
When Trip Wellborn came to Michigan, he started his career as a wide receiver, and as a true freshman, he saw action. But as a sophomore, this promising wideout was switched to defense. He's been a mainstay in the secondary ever since. As a matter of fact, he's an All-American as a safety, but he won't take the credit.
Individual success is an overflow from the team's success. That's the way I always see it. So I like if you go out and you play hard and you help the team to win, you do things to ask for the team to win, and if things come your way, then it's good because it's basically showing that your team has accomplished a whole lot.
While Tripp has certainly flourished as a defensive back, he still dreams about the glory of offensive fireworks.
But I just wanted to hear Keith Jackson say, I think he might go all the way, or something like that. Or maybe Chris Berman or ESPN. He might go all the, something like that, and put the hands in the air and sit the ball down and just, that instant rush of making a big play, scoring a touchdown. But I don't have any regrets because I've enjoyed what I've done, and I've enjoyed the team's success, and I'm glad because of that.
The only problem with this dream is that Keith Jackson hasn't got Tripp's last name perfected yet.
There he goes. And he did not make it. Trip Wellborn is the man that stuffed him.
And he's a living legend, and however he wants to pronounce it, I guess it's fine. But it is true. I've been here for 4 years, and it's still Wellborn. It's not Wellborn like it's pronounced, but that's okay. That's okay. I love Keith, and he keeps it going. He keeps it going back there, and I enjoy that a lot.
As you can see, Trip Wellborn is an easy guy to like. And a lot of the personality and values that he displays are the direct influence of a wonderful set of parents. They have made the sacrifice to drive up and see Trip play all the way from North Carolina, better than 30 times in Trip's career. There isn't much doubt what a family affair his career is.
whatever he does here, he's not just an extension of Michigan, but he's also an extension of his family and his relatives, and that's why he should always be committed.
One thing that we have instilled in Tripp is to, whatever you do your best. And I think that's the step that he has taken.
We've tried to support him in everything that he does here, and that means that we like for Michigan coaches to coach him and be the kinds of disciplinarians that's necessary. But we still try to be the parents that we should be to provide that other kind of support to make him a complete player. You know, they need the football field, but they also need things off the field, and we've tried to do that.
It's one thing about, you know, your mom is sitting up there, you make a great play, your mom looks up. She doesn't see a lot of them because every time something happens, she puts her hand up. And then she hears the crowd, she says, "What happened?" Starts clapping, but I mean, it's one of those things where you make a bad play, she's like, "That's my boy." Make a good play, "That's my boy." It doesn't even matter what you do, you're still a boy. Then after the game, you know, I'm a son, I'm a dad, my dad's son, go on and it can help you through the times that you need. And it's just a close-knit family, and I'm glad it's been that way.
It was a real disappointment. Tripp's such a great kid and a fun kid. To see him injured in the game against Minnesota. The extent of the injury at this point, Coach?
Well, Jim, we know one thing. He will not play, obviously, against Ohio State. And, well, they'll re-examine the knee on Monday under arthroscopic surgery, so we'll have to see what happens. But I want to say one thing about Tripp. You got to understand, there's an example of an excellent student-athlete who is an All-American. And he's an All-American in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and he's playing his best football of his life the last 3 or 4 weeks.
I think Tripp, at the beginning of the season, tried to do so much to make so many things happen. He has really settled in these last 4 or 5 weeks, and he's playing like Tripp Wellborn, a true All-American. And as you know, this week, he and Dean Dingman were picked on a Kodak All-American team, and we're very pleased with that. And you know we're going to miss Tripp Wellborn.
You know you're going to miss Tripp Wellborn. As a matter of fact, after the game against Minnesota, very emotional, Tripp Wellborn addressed the Michigan football team.
Everything's going to be all right with me, but the only one thing, I want you to win the last game, man. It's my last game, and I want everybody to come through for me, all right? Now, I'm not an emotional guy. Y'all know this. Y'all just got to do it. Thanks for the day. Thanks for the day. 1, 2, you know what to do.
Hail to the victors valiant, hail to the conquering heroes, hail, hail to the...
Came out on the first possession and moved the ball on you, and that's something you don't like to see early, is it?
No, and it happens on occasion. The thing you're thankful there, like this week, was the fact they only came up with 3 points. Sometimes you have to make those adjustments after you see what their attack's going to be, their initial attack.
They get a big pass here from Markel Fleetwood, their quarterback, early, getting them into your territory on their first possession.
That was on a blitz, and that hurt us.
And they're running the ball pretty hard, and I was a little surprised at that.
Right there, they jumped in a wishbone, and then John Milligan made a good tackle. And Fleetwood here on the quarterback draw. We had 2 quarterback draws on 2 big drives that hurt us. Then we got him slowed down. Here, Martin Davis has a great sack, just running over a would-be blocker, their fullback, and then sacking the quarterback help.
And that was Schaffner, the quarterback, who came.
Doug is important, Jim, and winning the game. Had we scored the 4 touchdowns in the first half rather than the second half, it'd have been a lot easier. But I think our defense played better, and we had a couple problems executing. Minnesota basically, Jim, come out and said, okay, you're not going to run the football. If you want to throw the ball, maybe you can score some points. And we didn't execute a couple things the first half. Major penalties hurt us, too.
Right, and early in the game, too, their offense came.
Victory over Minnesota. We'll also profile one of the Wolverines who's really a trip, and we'll scout the Buckeyes of Ohio State, Michigan's regular season finale. All that and more coming up next.
Retain the Little Brown Jug with a 35-18 win over Minnesota. And early in that game, it didn't look like it was going to be a big win.
Well, believe me, getting that
came in to replace Fleetwood, and then they had to settle for the 3 points, which at that point you said, okay, after they moved the ball that well, that's not bad.
Yeah, you don't want to give up any points, obviously, but at the same time, keep them out of the end zone from the touchdown.
Now, talk to us about defensively any adjustments that you made.
Well, the big thing that you try to do once you see their attack, sometimes you start playing different formations in different plays. Neil Simpson there came up with a